Well, joining us from his home in Austin, Texas, is former Toronto Blue Jay, all-star Kelly Gruber. Kelly, first of all, you showed us it's freaking snowing in Austin, Texas. Now, how rare is that for January?
Well, it's weird because either we have a really cold January and an early spring February or vice versa. So hopefully we're getting it over with and February will be well on our way to summer again. Once every 11 years, it'll snow here. And that's not very much. So we're not used to it. And I guarantee you everything is shut down out there because one snowflake hit the floor.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have the technology yet to deal with that amount of snow. I remember being in Washington, D.C., of all places, many years ago, and they had a snowstorm, and it was like the whole thing shut down, like because they had no plows and people didn't know what to do with themselves. So at least you've seen it, man. Like go back to like when you first came to Toronto for the first time, and it gets pretty cold in April, it gets pretty cold in September, and I'm sure you were in Canada, and were you like, what the hell have I signed up for here?
Yeah, and to top it off, of course, we're at the Exhibition Stadium, and it gets really cold down there by the water. And I was real happy to see that dome come along, I'll tell you that.
Doc?
Yeah, it's funny. I always used to make fun of. I have a really close friend of mine that lives down in Atlanta, and I always used to make fun of him for not being able to deal with the snow. But then I had another close friend of ours moved to LA, and in LA they shut down when it rains. So at least it takes snow for you guys in Texas.
Yeah.
How outside of the snow, how are things for you in Texas? How are things going? It's been a wild year.
Yeah, it has been. This life has been crazy. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to do. I miss coming to Canada and passing on the knowledge of baseball, to the new coaches, the old coaches, the young players. And, that brought a great joy to my life to pass it on. And it was just kind of one of those unwritten rules that Cito had made with everybody. Most of the coaches agreed as well, to do that. And, I was truly enjoying it. And when it's taken away like that, you just, you kind of flounder. And, of course, I've just been staying inside. I don't want to battle with that stuff. And, I don't know what to think of it. It's just crazy. It makes no rhyme or reason. And I don't know. So I've been doing things around the house. I've been staying busy. It doesn't pay any money to do that over here, though.
No, I guess not. Did you not save your money from all those billion-dollar contracts? Oh yeah, that's right. You played in the 80s where they didn't have them. But having said that, do you remember the first time you got a major league paycheck and you saw those zeros and you went, "Holy shit"?
Yeah, I didn't know what it was, how much it was. I was just when I passed my 10 fingers, I lose. My math stops. They don't work as well. But it's such a different language. But yeah, it was quite a surprise and awakening to see large numbers like that. I was paid on a 3-year deal, $11 million, and at that time,
Oh yeah,
that was the highest paid third baseman in the history of the game, and that's nothing now.
So you opened the door for them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I heard that the guys before me opened the door for us. So we have such a strong what do you call it? Union. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Donald Fuhrer, I think, what is he with? He's with the hockey
Yeah,
team.
he is.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's doing magical things. There's no doubt in my mind what's going on there for those guys. And the thing I liked what he did most was he made everything retroactive. All the greats that had played that were not eligible to receive any of this, we made sure that they were going to be eligible to receive it actively.
Hey, Kelly, Tommy Lasorda just passed away recently. Did you get to know Tommy at all during your baseball days?
You know, I did. I never had a chance to play for him. I'd see him here and there, you know, different places. We'd go do some things and kind of meet up. I remember he paid me just a truly a very nice compliment one time. I was excited about meeting him, and I saw him, so I immediately went over to him and I said, "Hello, Mr. Lasorda. My name's Kelly Gruber." He shook my hand. He goes, "Oh, I know your name. I know who you are." And I kind of thought, "Uh-oh, what did I do?" And he said, he goes, "No." He says, "You're a ball player. I can tell you're a ball player just the way you walk." So, you know, that kind of tells you a little bit about what Tommy was all about. It wasn't uh, uh, into all, you know, seeing the guys on the field. He could see them off the field walking down the street and tell whether they're a ball player. And it's funny because I don't know if that works for me too, if I've been blessed with that trick or treat. You know, it's I can tell by the way people walk. I can tell by you know, some of these ball players, the way they talk, the way uh, you know, conduct themselves, um, whether they can play ball or not, and what kind of athlete they are. And you know, it's I don't know why, because I truly think you have to see somebody on the field to register how good they are and where they could fit in your program.
Is that something that's being lost in the game today? That ability to measure the intangibles, to know just by a look or a feel, is that getting lost in a sea of numbers, do you think, by most teams?
Well, you know, I do. I think that's the case. Yeah, you have the Billy Bean, you know, Moneyball, and
Mhm.
I kind of think that's where it all started. To think that you don't have to lay eyes on a player to tell whether they can play and determine how far they can go, I think is wrong. The stats purely are not going to tell you now. You know, they'll say, well, they're going to get on base X amount of times a game, and they're going to score so many runs. That's Moneyball and how they based everything like that. And that's what we want. So in order to score runs, you have to have base runs, and it doesn't matter how you get on base. You just get on base, and then people push them around, and you score, and that's how you win games. Uh, you also win it by defense, you know, as well. But you know, I think it's gotten away from that. I think a lot of the scouts, they're going by, uh, you know, the example that Billy Bean and Moneyball had set out in front of them, and you know, I don't think they're putting too much weight on going and seeing these players and you know, laying their eyes on them to see if they can play. And I think that's such an important ingredient, really, you know, that stats doesn't say at all.
Kelly, another thing that stats don't social.
Well, I think it's your background. I think it's how you grow up, your parents, you know, and just simply how you brought up. You know, I don't think that I ever really had that kind of problem. I think more of my problems early on were actually realizing what's around me, my surrounding, the dome, 50,000 people in it. And if I paid homage to that and I looked up and oh my God, there's 50,000 people in the stands, then that definitely would affect my game. And, I found out later that, listen, if that's where I'm going with my thinking and my mind, it's not where it's supposed to be. I should be, projecting the game. If our pitcher throws this pitch, what is this hitter going to do it versus that hitter? What is he going to do with it? And you tend to go to the tendencies of our pitchers. And we had game plans, where to play them and how we're going to pitch to them. And you play the percentages in that. So, it's a mental game. That's what they've said forever. And it truly is, because you almost have to stay a pitch ahead.
How did you play the mental game? Do you think you did a decent job playing that mental game, on and off the field, right? Because again, I mean, when you're a popular guy and the spotlight's on you, everybody's watching every move you make, kind of thing. Yeah. Like the water skiing, right? Back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if I let my mind wander and entertain those thoughts, I'm not where I'm supposed to be, and chances are I'm not going to make that play, or I'm not going to get that hit. And you come a little older, a little more experienced, and thank goodness I had great coaches that had played the game, and it wasn't something that they were trying to teach that they had nothing to know about. So I was blessed in that sense, and that's always a helpful hand. And it just, the mental game came along. I was 31 when I went down and couldn't play any longer. And I had felt like I just gotten to that threshold, and I'd crossed the threshold. And I had a game plan coming into the game, because I knew the pitcher. I'd faced him in a certain amount of time, and times that, as long as I stayed disciplined and stuck to that game plan, I had a 30% chance of getting a hit. You fail 70% of the time, you hit 300. You're a great player. You're an all-star, and that's a tough thing. That's a big hurdle to cross, because now it's again the mental side of things with playing the game, and you can dig yourself a hole pretty quick, failing 70% of the time. It's not fun.
It's you bring up reaching that level and reaching that plateau, and the career kind of coming to the end that it did at age 31, and I still remember, I still think of that as probably one of the worst plays in MLB history. I was watching that tag that was made, and obviously didn't know at the time the damage that had been done to your shoulder. Looking back at it now, it's unfortunate that your career was never really able to recover. Was there something in specific? Was it a body thing? Was it just a general wear and tear, or had you reached the end of your line at that young age?
Oh, well, I think it all started in football. In Texas, football's king. It's like hockey in Canada. And that's not tiddlywinks, hockey and football. That's a real man sport. It's not baseball, or swimming or checkers, But it started there. They said I was a better football player than I was baseball player. I certainly liked it more, and I was often compared. I think I'd heard many times from commentators that he looks like a football player playing baseball. Just the way I played it aggressively. I didn't want any regrets. I didn't want to retire in that rocking chair and say, I wish I'd have done this and I wish I'd have done that. I was going to spend it on the field knowingly that, I gave it all that I had. And whether I won or lost, I succeeded or I failed, I could hold my head up and knew that I gave it the best shot that I could. And, again, you need that in baseball because if you get 3 hits out of 10 and then multiply that with 500 at bats, you hit 300 and you fail 70% of the time. Now, I had a hot head growing up. I had to learn how to control that just to stay in the game. And 70% of the time, I was hot in the head a lot, and it's not easy to deal with, and that was I think probably the first major big hurdle that I had to get over mentally, not accept it, but understand it and not let it get to me to where it dragged me down further and I dig a hole for myself or any deeper than it should be. So I think that's how it works. And as time goes on, if you have good coaches that have played the game, uh, they had methods of how they achieved those benchmarks and growth in the game. And I was fortunate, like I said, to had quite a few really. I mean, Jimmy Williams, he taught me so much about the game of baseball. Bobby Cox scared me to death.
You're not the only one.
Oh man, you take a bad swing and you'd look over for some help at the bench and you'd see Bobby and he'd be just, I don't know what words he was saying to me, but I'm sure they weren't nice and it did nothing for the confidence. So he managed in a little different way is where Cito and I, we had some signs that the way we would talk when I was up at the plate and he was on the bench, maybe giving me a possibility of why don't you look for a curveball or why don't you look for an outside fastball or this. And because we had talked about it quite a bit, whenever I looked at him, I was saying, help, help, and he was so good at calling pitches and having a real good inkling on what pitch was going to be thrown next according to the situation, who's behind me, who's on the mound, who's on base. So he really helped me through that whole process a lot.
Kelly, it's interesting you mentioned about, having issues being hot-headed in your younger days. And Todd Stoppelmeyer told us the exact same thing a couple years ago about how in his younger days with the Jays, that was probably his biggest issue. As he got older, he learned how to deal with that. And I asked him if he regretted what he went through then. And he said, well, not really, because I think I needed to go through that to learn how to not do it. Do you find it the same way that, maybe there were times where you got too out of control with the hot-headedness, but you needed to make those mistakes to learn to be where you are now?
Absolutely. Todd's 100% right. We had a saying, if it wasn't for the valleys, we wouldn't know what the mountain peaks were. If it wasn't for failure, how would we know what success was? So you needed one with the other to understand where you were at that time and what kind of success or failure rate did you have. And it's such a fast game that, it's like your music. I think that's why a lot of ball players want to be musicians and musicians want to be baseball players, is because it's individual, even though it's a team game, but the team's not in that box swinging that bat for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's you or making that play or, and if you have, like I said, you have to stay a step ahead, a pitch ahead, because 0-1 is different than 1-0, then 0-0, then 2-0, 0-2, and that's going to determine what that pitcher is going to throw. And according to, again, the situation of the game, what inning, Are they up or are they down? Are there men on base? And so, it's such a mental game that I was just an athlete. I wasn't a baseball player. I was an athlete, and I had to learn to become a baseball player. And uh, I'm not a real mental kind of a guy. I'm again an athlete that played football, loved that sport. I don't know that it takes a whole lot of brains to go bash your head into somebody else.
I don't know. I used to play football. I was a quarterback, and you had to know you had to memorize a lot. There's a lot of brains that went into those patterns.
It used to not be that way. They would call strong right, slant right, and everybody would know. Okay, well, I'll line up on this side and we'll lean that way, so we're slanting. You know, uh, and it was very simple back in the days. Mash mouth football. Probably hockey was a lot the same. And then the equipment got better. They skated better. They were faster. Uh, the supplements get stronger, and they're bigger. So the game changes, and it is. I signed to play football at Texas. Excuse me. And baseball. And again, I wanted to play football, but I went first round, 10th pick of the nation out of high school here in Austin. And that decision was no longer on the table to be made. It was made for me. And so that's the way it went. But, Barry Switzer wanted me to come and run his triple option. I was a triple option running. I'd carry the ball 20, 30 times a game as quarterback. But
Wow.
I also played free safety, which I think is the best position on the field because you are the hunter there, and at quarterback you're nothing but the hunted, and so I was going to be able to play football and baseball at Texas, and because free safety, there's not a whole lot of schemes you have to learn like at quarterback. You got to go to school all year long to learn not only all your plays, your checkoffs, uh, the other teams, and you're recognizing what they're running. And it's 24/7 job as a quarterback. Free safety, you line up strong side of the center, 12 yards deep. Your first two steps are straight back as hard as you can go. Nobody gets behind you. Read the quarterback, use the sidelines to go to the ball. That's it. So I could have played baseball, and I was going to play baseball, even though it wasn't my favorite sport because of my family. My grandmother, my grandfather, my mom, my dad. They wanted me to play baseball, and obviously thought I was good. But again, I wasn't a baseball player. I was just an athlete, and I'd venture to say that football was the same. I wasn't a football player as much as I was an athlete, and it's the whole process of putting the mind with your game plans and the ability to stick to that. That's discipline, and learning that, which was hard for me to learn, and applying it, and then taking the lumps with the good doses of sugar, when you'd win, when you'd do well. So it was a big process. And I guess at 30 years old, I just kind of started coming into my own and becoming a baseball player and putting the mental side along with the physical side. Uh, and yeah, I was having a lot more fun. I was having a lot more success. And yeah, and I just a whole lot more confidence. I wasn't worried about how many people were in the stands, or so many people. They said, "Why does Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds, the Alomars, the Alous. Why do they just step up in at 20 years old, so young, and make their mark and can jump right in? Well, because you know they were out shagging fly balls for the big red machine as kids. Then when they step on that baseball field, that Major League Baseball park, their knees aren't knocking like yours. Scared to death because oh my God, it's frightening. It can be if you lend your mind to it, and that's what you have to take control of, and not let happen.
Kelly, what do you remember about your first major league game? Do you have any memories of it? Do you remember your first at bat or taking the field for that first game?
I remember I had to pee. I had to pee. I was
Yeah, Forrest
I had
Gump.
to pee. I had to pee, man. I was I was scared. And
Yeah.
I learned as time went on that if I didn't get nervous before every game, there's something wrong. You should never get that complacent and that comfortable, so to speak. There should always be a nervousness to you because, the whole visualization thing about seeing yourself out there, playing that game through, seeing yourself hitting the winning double, making the winning catch or play. When the mind sees it in your inner eye, your body believes it and it follows it. And
Kelly, go on. Sorry.
that's about it. It's a process.
It wasn't until your fourth game that you actually even had an at bat in the majors. Do you recall, did that make it easier for your first three games? It looks like you were defensive replacement for those three games. And then you get one at bat against the Royals in May of '84. And it wasn't until, September. So I guess, did you get sent down and then called back up again? Did they have September call-ups back then?
Yes. Yeah. And that's, when I came to the Jays, that's when they chopped the roster from 25 to 24, which actually helped me because Jimmy came up, Williams and Bobby Cox, and asked, do you mind playing the outfield? I said, no, I'll play anywhere you want me to, just to be on the field. And not that I'd played outfield before, but when they chopped it down, they could no longer carry an extra outfielder and an extra infielder. They had to have one guy for the boat as a utility. So that actually helped me. And when I came over in the Rule 5 draft, that's probably what kept me on the big league roster. And then they made that trade with Gino Petralli in, I think, $2 million that Toronto gave to Cleveland, which it allowed me to go down to AAA because I wasn't getting any playing time. You're not going to get better playing the sport without playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny bringing up your first baseball game. I'll share just a quick story about my first baseball game. I think it was April 16th, 1989.
You guys keep going, by the way. I'm so nervous now I have to pee. So you guys go.
I don't know if that date rings a bell to you.
Yeah.
Kelly, are you there?
1989?
Yeah. April 16th, I think, was the date.
Is that the cycle day? No.
That was, I think of it as the day that I learned never to leave a baseball game early.
What happened?
I went with a teammate of mine whose father was our coach, brought us to the X, and it was my first ever. I'd been a Blue Jays fan for years, but didn't have a lot of money growing up, so that was my first game ever. And the Blue Jays were losing real bad early, and my friend's dad decided, you know what, we'd get out of this blowout, and he'd take us down and see the new dome that they were building. And yeah, you can only imagine my shock and horror. The funny thing is, that day they were having a promotion. If you were at the game, you could buy a ticket at the box office and get a 50% off for another game. So we all went down a little bit later in the summer and got to see the Texas Rangers. And it was, I think, one of Todd Stallmeyer's first starts. Nolan Ryan was pitching. And I believe you broke up his shutout in, it would have been the ninth inning. Nelson Liriano hit a triple, and I think you sack flied him home.
No.
But those,
Kelly doesn't remember anything.
You're Barry, you're absolutely right, because again, I was petrified, to say the least. I mean, seriously, if I acknowledged my surroundings, it would be like, oh my God, I can't do this. It's natural. It happens that way. And so that the whole trick was to stay busy with your mind. And again, staying ahead by one pitch each time, projecting what could happen, seeing yourself make these plays. If I bobble it and I'm going this way, I don't have time to go to second now. I got to go to first immediately. Because how many times you see that? They bobble it, they come up, throw to second like they were going to, and they say, oh, I can't get them. And then they go to first and they go to throw it, and oh, I can't get them now either. So that's what you got to play through. Bobble it, I don't even think a second now. I'm going straight to first, and I get them out. So that's how I kept my mind busy, so I wasn't thinking about everybody's eyes beating down on you.
Was there ever a point in your playing career where you just were able to shut it out when you were, you kind of alluded to this, I think, probably in the early 90s seasons when you were speaking earlier, but did you ever reach that point where you were like, I'm here, I'm doing what I should be doing, and it's just all confidence and fun?
Yeah, well, I did, and I'll tell you, a phenomena. All I heard was a buzz. I'd hear, the common crowd would be a zzz, just a buzz when you're out there in the field. And when they didn't like something and they wanted to boo, it'd go from the zzz to and you'd hear that. So you knew that something wasn't going on that the fans liked. Okay. Well, when they cheered, it did just the opposite. It goes, So as time went on, that's what I would hear when I was out on the field. I wasn't paying attention to the guys over right on the field at the Bronx playing the Yankees. The same 10 guys that would come every game of mine and scream obscenities at me, I didn't hear them anymore.
Did that same rule apply to you once you were in a postseason game? Because everything is escalated so much, right? Already you're more nervous. The intensity is there more. There's so much more on the line. And the noise in the stadium is going to be so much more than what you'd see in a regular season game. Did you almost have to take a breath at that point and kind of reassess how you were going to handle it?
Yeah, I watched a movie long time ago called Hoosiers.
Oh yeah.
Gene Hackman, one of the greatest movies I think I've seen. And when that little podunk town went to the big city to play in for state, and the big Samson Goliath team that they were going against that had won so many championships, he took them on that court and he measured the foul line to the basket. You remember, the same dimensions on this basketball court are the same ones in Podunkville where you're from. The game doesn't change. And that stuck with me. So I think ultimately that helped me mentally, once I got to the point where I was handling the crowd and feeling somewhat comfortable and staying busy mentally into the game, taking my mind off of that as time went on, then obviously you get to the playoffs and you go to the World Series, and it's magnified. But I'm the keeper of this gate, and if I don't entertain it, it has no residence. So that was the challenge, and what everybody goes through, I'm sure, whether it's at your park or at fantasy camp.
Oh yeah, you saw me at fantasy camp.
Yeah,
I was peeing my pants every moment I was out there on the field.
I'm not saying about that.
Especially when I got you throwing a ball at me from third base, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, there's a rule: don't dive when you've peed your pants, because then you'll have a big black spot. They'll see it.
But you know what, Kelly, and that's funny you say that, because you were not afraid to get your uniform dirty. If you had to dive for a ball, you'd dive for a ball. And we saw a lot of that for the teams that you were a part of, whether it be Alomar, whether it be Tony Fernandez. You don't see a lot of that now. The last guy I remember in the Blue Jays organization that did that was Josh Donaldson. In fact, the first time I saw Josh Donaldson play third base, he reminded me of you. Do you see that? Like when you watch Josh, did you see any of you in him?
Yeah, he was, I mean, that's a compliment, by the way. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It was just the blonde hair more than anything, Kelly.
Yeah. The flow, right?
The flow, that's right. Anyways, go on.
Yeah, no, Josh was very determined. He was probably ahead of me mentally. I was truly blessed athletically from the Lord above. I mean, it was nothing that I did, and I didn't find too many people that were at that level with me athletically. A baseball player, I couldn't understand, why can't I break into the big leagues? Why can't I get on the road to the success and have the kind of success that I'm wanting to have and think I should have? Because the mental side wasn't there. Well, most of the guys that aren't as athletic, they have it right between the ears earlier, and they have it right here in the heart. And that makes up for athleticism. And otherwise, you're just running around with your head cut off like a chicken. If you don't know what key opens the door, you're going to be stuck there for a while. So Josh was determined, like I said, and he was smart. I mean, he was a catcher first, right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's such a different perspective of the game. They're the only ones that face the opposite direction of everybody else the whole game. And that's why I think they make good managers. They see the game in a different light, and they know both the pitching, the way the defense should be shaded, calling the pitches, who the hitters are, that sort of thing. But I think it's harder to go from third base or infield, outfield to catcher than vice versa.
Oh yeah.
I think it would be. And he had good range. He played well, and the hinges in his knees had to be blown out, and catching all the times that he did, it's murder to your legs. So to see him do that well for that long was surprising, in that sense. But he sure had a knack of how to play baseball.
Have there been any other players? Barry brings up Josh Donaldson, but for yourself, as someone watching, have there been any players that you saw and went, man, that reminds me of me, or man, that just brings something back of another, anything like that?
Well, the one guy that I thought, we play a lot, the game a lot the same way. That was Lenny Dykstra.
Oh yeah.
I called him Nails, and he played it hard. And there were other guys like Brett Lowry,
Mhm.
guys like that would play hard.
Brett may be a little bit too much, so Kelly, that he abused his body so much that he didn't have a very long career out of it.
Yeah, and they said the same thing about me. They said that Kelly, do you think that if you're on first next time and um, it's a double play ball, you could maybe run out of the baseline and not have to go so hard and so fast and take that guy out trying to turn the double play at second. And and it just sent me such mixed signals. It's like, why did you go out and draft me? Why did you go out and want me on the team? Obviously, you like the way that I play, and now you're trying to change that. I didn't understand it. I didn't play the game to last. Uh, Obviously, the more years you get in, the more numbers you have, and the better chance you're going to have for the Hall of Fame. You don't get to the Hall of Fame without numbers, unless you've done something really good in your life, in a different accord, and you're taken out of the game early. But you have to have years, you have to have days, you have to have numbers, period, to make it to the Hall of Fame. And that never even crossed my mind. Uh, I played it for no regrets. I had two guys, Rusty Staub and Don Baylor. Both of them told me the same thing. They said, Kelly, if you're so fortunate to play at this level that I've played at, just promise yourself you'll play each pitch like it's your last, because one day it will be. And when you retire on that porch in that rocking chair and you're rocking back and forth, you don't want to have any regrets. You don't want to say, I wish I'd have done this and I wish I'd have done that. Spend it, everything you have, each pitch like it's your last. And I played that way because you never know when it's going to be your last. And I didn't want to have any regrets. And that really stuck to me. So, that's so I played the game hard. I dove for the ball many times. And I know the thought process was in my mind. I know what I thought before I dove. Oh, I can't get that ball. That I didn't get a good enough jump, or he hit that ball too good, or it's too far away. But nevertheless, I'd take that step and I'd dive, and lo and behold, to my surprise, the ball's in my glove. And I'm going, holy cow, I caught it. Oh, now I got to get up and throw him out, And I get up and throw him out. I almost forgot because I was so surprised I had the ball in my glove. So, it's funny how that works, but never say never. What the mind can conceive, you will achieve. If you think something's going to happen, chances are it's going to happen. But if you don't think it's not going to happen, guess what? Chances are it's not going to happen.
Kelly,
Does it
for
become
yeah, just real quick, Kelly, for the record, are you sitting in a rocking chair right now?
It's an office chair. I'm
Okay,
a businessman.
Okay.
Oh, now I've lost my place, Barry.
Did I do him? Tom, while you're thinking that, I'm curious to know, what is it like for you to watch video of your playing days, or have you watched? If you see like games from the 91, 92, and like when you see that young Kelly Gruber in that uniform, what does it do for you to see that?
What in the world why did I have a mullet?
We all did.
I had a mullet because I liked long hair, but I didn't like it in my eyes, because if I couldn't see the ball, it would hurt if it hit me. So, that was the main thing. But I don't like the way I sound when I listen to a recording or this or that. I don't like the way I look. I mean, to everybody else, they go through the same thing. And it's just amazing how unhappy, maybe not unhappy, but we're not satisfied with who we are when we see ourselves. Because I guess we're never out there looking back and seeing what we're how we sound and what we look like and this and that. So, I don't, I think about it back then, and it just, it seems so long ago. And, we often talked about what is 7 billion people in the world, and there's how many major league teams? 30?
Yeah. There's not a
Uh,
lot of people doing it, right?
30,
And that's the thing.
30
Yeah.
third basemen out of 7 billion people. What are the chances of you being one?
Yeah. And the thing is, most of us, we may have some photos or home movies of ourselves, but when you're doing what you did, Kelly, I mean, you go all over YouTube, you go all over TV, and in your history is documented there. I mean, it's there forever and ever. When you're long gone, people can still watch videos of Kelly Gruber hitting home runs. It's pretty wild when you think about that, because very few people have that. Well, did. Now with everybody videotaping everything, we all do, but back then it was rare.
Yeah, I wish I would have had a GoPro with me diving for the balls and stuff.
Oh, shoot, yeah.
No, yeah, it's a different world for sure, and there's so much more distractions. I mean, I think about my kids now, and I think cell phones weren't that long ago.
Mm-mm.
It's amazing the technology and the strides we've made. It's scary in the fact that where do we go from here? If we make those same kind of strides that we made, man, I don't know. Those kids I didn't need very many distractions to get me off course. It had its way with me. It was hard for me to concentrate, ADD, ADHD, all that kind of stuff. And the boys are a lot different than the girls, and we're thinking about the game after, during class, or the girls, So yeah, it's a different world, certainly for sure.
Tom, you remember what you were going to say?
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, speaking about that, you can go back and you can take a look at these old videos, and you can hear yourself speak, and is there if two questions, I guess, is kind of what we're kind of bubbling in my mind. If you could have sort of written your baseball career, would those press interviews, would that time in the spotlight, would have even been a part of it, or would you have just rather played? Actually, we'll start with that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good question, because not always did I feel like talking to the press. Um, there are a few that would change the stories, I mean, we always said, who buys a newspaper to read the good news? No, they want to read the bad news. They want to read the dirt, whether it's true or not, and it's a dog eat world. But I also knew that they had a job to do, and uh, most of the guys, because they could, they wouldn't talk to the reporters when they had a bad game, or when we lost, or uh, you know, and it shut them off. And I didn't do that because, well, most importantly, I didn't want them writing a bunch of crap about me, because they're gonna have the last say so. They got the pen in their hand, and they can make you look, how they want you to look. Um, but they had their job to do, and I may not feel like talking to them because I was the goat that night, but I did anyway, because they needed to do their job, and I think for the most part they they appreciated that. I had quite a few of them, the beat writers. Um, they would come up and thank me uh, for being that way. So that paid a lot of dividends. I was just brought up to treating people, how you want to be treated. that's, a pretty good golden rule that, if everybody could do that, this world would be a lot better place.
With that being said, Kelly, was it hard for you to go through times, even like after your playing days, where people would say not so nice things? I mean, we talked before about that incident that happened in Toronto, and you addressed it, and also I don't want to go down that path again, but just as far as is there anything about you as a human being or as a person that maybe people don't understand or don't realize about Kelly Gruber, that maybe make judgments just based on things they might read or see snippets of or whatever? Is there anything that, because I know you better than a lot of people do that are out there, and I know that how much you give back and how all the wonderful things that you do and the motivational speaking and stuff, but are you cool with what your legacy is as a celebrity?
I am. I really am. There's no regrets. We're going back to the regret table. There's no regrets. I I've been called every name in the book. Everything from a homo, I was gay, or I was a wife beater, or beat my kids, or and that just it comes along with the territory. It's part of the real estate, and you come to learn that real fast. And you got to have pretty thick skin. You can't let that bother you, obviously, because it would change your game. It had that much influence. So, just I guess growing up and realizing that, and we were fortunate as well because we had a guy that would come and talk to us. He was a sports psychologist, Sudden Sam McDowell.
Mm-hmm.
He was a pitcher, and they called him Sudden Sam because when he pitched, he threw that ball. That ball was suddenly upon you, you know. And he's a big guy. He's a really big guy, so he closes that gap, like Randy Johnson would do. I don't know if anybody was that big on the mound, but it's a mental challenge every day to put up with. And I had a rule: I didn't read any newspapers during the season. Did not. Well, I don't really read, period. Which I'm not bragging about by any means, but I end up falling asleep when I start reading.
I do the same. Yeah.
uh,
If I get into a good book, I'm asleep 10 minutes in.
oh man, or I'm going back and I get past the first paragraph, and it's like, okay, let's start the second one. It's like, wait a minute, what did the first paragraph say again? And I read it again, and it's like, oh my gosh, and I'd be out. I would be out. I'd be asleep. But it's just a trial by error, really. You trial by fire. I mean, you go through it and you learn as you go, and hopefully, take some lessons along with you in how to combat it. But you don't really stop it. The pedestal, the idol, the worship, all of these things, you know, I did not enjoy. I appreciated it. I revered it, you know, but I was
That's not
scared.
why you became a baseball player, right? You didn't become a baseball player. And a lot of musicians are kind of looked at the same way, right? You become a rock star because you want to meet girls or you want to be popular, you want to be famous. But there are some that feel that way. But at the end of the day, you do it because you love making music. You play baseball because you love playing baseball, not to be a star.
Yeah, yeah, and that's all I did was, I was in sports, everything: tennis, basketball, baseball, football, track, and I stayed busy the whole year. So that's really all that I knew. I wish I would have played music, even though my family is into music. My mom's warmed up for Elvis. sang with
Mhm.
Elvis. They had
That's
a band.
awesome.
Yeah, and Miss is spoiled brat. But and my cousin Lyle Levitt and he are real close and co-write a lot of stuff together. And he's played on his albums and stuff, and went on tour quite a bit with him. And so it's in my family. And I wish I would have,
It's
played.
never too late, Kelly. It's never too
I
late.
was about to
Tom,
say, have you ever?
Tom,
Yeah,
Tom's a guitar teacher. He does a lot of online lessons. We could set you up.
Yeah. Well, is it drums or is it guitar?
guitar,
See, I
guitar
could
or bass.
I could swing that stick.
I actually do. One of the introductory lessons I do with my students is I pick some of your favorite songs and I teach you how to play them with one finger. So just to show you that the guitar isn't that unapproachable an instrument, because it can be something that's it's funny. It's something that athletes tend to do really well because it's a lot of muscle control, muscle memory, and at the beginning pain until you get the calluses rolling.
Oh man, it hurts my fingers. I was embarrassed to say, but I'm not going to play guitar because it hurts my fingers. That didn't sound very good for me.
Some tough guy you are, Kelly.
Yeah, yeah. So the swinging those sticks makes more sense to me. I was in band when I was in junior high, and I was in percussion. So I know a little bit of drums. And well, what did I read? Just is it yesterday? A couple of days has been past. Neil Peart was his
From Rush.
passing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was the anniversary of it. Yeah, he died just that was
Mm.
one of the first bad news things we got from 2020. But yeah, I mean, and you got to know some of the guys, some of the rock stars, didn't you, during your days? And that was one of the nice things about celebrity, right, Kelly? Because it did allow you to connect with other celebrities, specifically because and again, like you say, not only do ball players want to be musicians, that's who their kind of celebrity heroes are, and vice versa. Rock stars want to meet athletes. So who were some of the cool musicians you got a chance to meet back then?
Well, I'll tell you the one that really kind of freaked me out. I went with Dave Steeb to see Rush, and they played in the Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
And what a great show. And I grew up in Westlake, in Austin here, listening to 2112 and what have you. And when that show was over, they came up and asked Dave and I if we wanted to come back and meet the guys. And I think Dave had already met those guys. I certainly hadn't. And I said, sure. And we went back and visiting with Alex and Getty. And Getty just kind of tapped me and said, Kelly, do you have a minute? I said, sure, Getty. What's going on? He goes, I'd like to show you something. So I followed him, and he's got this, how they travel. They've got this big like dresser drawer that buckles, and it's on like 6 feet tall, and it opens up like this, and one side is hanging clothes, and the other side are drawers. Well, lo and behold, there's all the pictures of his family on the drawers, and there's my baseball card.
So cool.
I went, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Right? And but that was that was something else. It's like, man, I must have made it, or I must be somebody, But it's funny with your music, when you play that lick, you can't take that back. You've played that lick. It's a lick played. You better be on to the next lick, because that song keeps moving on. It's all live. Well, that's the same thing kind of with baseball. Once that pitch is thrown, you're not changing it. You know, So I think that's kind of the complement between the two, and why musicians want to be baseball players, because everything's live. Everything's
Mhm.
live. And you don't have time to cry over spilled milk, missing that note, or making that error, or, you better be off to the next pitch or the next note.
When you,
That's
easy, it's very easy to say, Kelly. But I mean, if you're in the middle of a game and a ball goes through your legs, how long before you stop killing yourself over it? Because it's
Next,
embarrassing, right? You know you're not supposed to do that.
now the
I'm like,
next year, you're over it the next year.
yeah. Unless you're Bill Buckner. Poor Bill Buckner had to live with that his entire life.
He'll never get over that.
no.
I don't see how he could. It affects you, and I don't know anybody that likes failing. I don't know anybody that likes committing an error or something like that. You know, but it happens again. How would we know what success was if it wasn't for failure? And you have to start looking at it constructively. And what I would do, I would replay in my mind, okay, I caught the ball fine. I came up throwing, and I either threw wild, or there was not enough juice on the ball to be in time on time. Okay, so I need to replay that in my mind's eye, before that next pitch is thrown, and see what I did wrong, and then
Mm-hmm.
replay it again. Now see yourself doing it right. So you make the correction, you stay busy mentally, and not sitting over there, oh, you stupid sucker, man. What are you thinking about? And just digging yourself a hole. Uh, because again, it's 70% failure ratio, and there's such a
Mm-hmm.
fine. How many people have uh, uh, hit 400 and been right 40% of the time with the 60% failure ratio? And then you hit 200 below the Mendoza line. I mean, that's a fine line, you know. You're looking for another job, so
Yep.
you got to really stay busy and replay the plays in your mind and see yourself doing it right, and setting yourself up for the next play to do it right. And as you're thinking about, okay, well, it's 2-1 now, and this guy's hitting. He's a poor hitter, and I know Jimmy Key's on the mound. He's going to keep the ball away and throw that dead fish. He's going to try to pull it. Well, he's not going to hit it down the line very hard on me. So I afford to get off of the line, take away that hole, and still get to that ball that he's trying to pull, and hits a 100 hopper down the line. I can still get to it and throw him out. So I'll push towards the hole. And you stay busy again like that mentally, and you're in the right spot. You're setting yourself up, to have success.
I love what you're saying as you're talking through learning, like the actual process of learning from these failures and improving. It's actually been a bit of a common theme here on Out of the Park. We spoke to a number of former Blue Jays who really surprised us, because when they talked about the big moments in their careers, it wasn't the success that they had, but it was the failures that they wouldn't have ever been as good without. And is there a big failure for you that sticks out in your mind that made you as successful a player as you were, or was it just that process of learning as you went that you just described?
I don't know that there's any really one particular thing. They all seem to be giants, and certainly the whole process of going through it all, and learning it. Again, I was very fortunate because I had such great teachers. I had such great coaches that uh, were willing to pass down that knowledge. And you know, I, I'd like to see the game have more of that. Any game, any team, any sport, because when you have the people that have fought the wars, they know how to lead you into battle. And there's no attitudes, there's no egos, there's nothing, no bickering, no arguing, um, and because he's been through it. Cito, he'd been through those wars, and I'd be a fool not to listen to him. So, it's. I was fortunate in that we all were in that sense. There's so many coaches out there that, I mean, even some of the guys that had played, maybe he was a pitcher or maybe he was a catcher. Well, how's he going to tell me how to play third base? How many games did you play at third base? Or maybe he wasn't that top of the line of a player. So, because with every bit of success as time goes on, those are different platforms, different levels, and different ways of handling, that fame. I've always said, give me all the fortune and you can have the fame. That's the mess I don't like dealing with, but it again comes along with the territory.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kelly, as we wrap up, I will say you did give me some pointers at fantasy camp on how to make some plays. You actually were helping me in the infield. So I feel I owe you. So the next time I actually see you, which I'm still waiting for the invite out to Texas for the band to play, but I guess we got to wait for all this COVID stuff to go away. But I will give you some music lessons. How about that? I owe you.
Yeah, man. You would love it. You'd love it down here.
Only if you got to grow the mullet back, though. If you're going to be a musician, you got to have the mullet back.
No, I'm gonna let it all grow.
Well, there we go.
I just got it cut.
Oh, jeez.
So I got it butched, man. You should have seen it. Not getting out. And of course, I'm not going to go get a haircut with the COVID-19. That's way too close.
Yeah.
And, it's like I put it off to the COVID-19 hairdo time.
Yeah, that's right.
Everybody's going to have pictures of it.
That's right.
So it's what it was. And then I just asked for a trim, and yeah, I don't, maybe she spelt trim with 2 M's. I don't know. He took
listen,
a lot, chopped it. It's like, oh yeah, and you feel naked,
Listen, Matt, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to chat today. Being a little bit younger than you, I was, one of those teenagers watching you back in the, in the late 80s and early 90s. And it's so cool to be able to see you doing so well now and taking the time to chat with us, pal.
Well, you scared me. I almost thought you were leading into that. I was like the one that, that had your poster on my ceiling, saw you every night before I went to bed. No, Barry, no.
Oh, crap. Okay, I better not tell you about that one.
Well, he was known as the prettiest Blue Jay when he played.
Yeah.
Yes.
I appreciate it, Barry. Thank you. That's very nice of you to say. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I enjoy doing your show. I'm not, I guess, again, it comes with the territory. It's not like, oh man, yeah, I love it, man. Put me on the camera, but I think it needs to be done, and whether we want to or not. And I like the way you guys do your show, and I appreciate it. And I don't know, I'm thinking about doing a podcast myself. I don't know why, because I can't see the Canadian people, or I can't be there right now and have it. So maybe that's the way to reach out and
I love it.
Keep it going or something. And so I might be reaching out to you and interviewing you guys, but I'm not going to interview you guys together. Y'all are going to be.
Well, I'll tell you what, once this gets released, and I'm sure everyone's going to love it, then that will be your sign that it's time to do your own show.
Cool. Yeah, I like it.
All right, Cal. Stay well, my man. Take care. Nice talking to you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Right. See ya.
Yeah, bye-bye.